Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Get ready, because we're about to unpack a pretty mind-bending paradigm shift regarding how our universe fundamentally operates. For a long time, we've kind of been looking at reality backwards. We're moving away from viewing reality as just this giant collection of static objects, and instead, we're going to explore a completely different framework. One where reality is an active, continuous process. Literally, a dynamic system that relies on a very specific mathematical governor just to keep the whole thing running.
So, think about this specific number, approximately 0.35. Within the framework we're exploring today, this isn't just some random decimal or a neat little fraction. No, this is the Mark I attractor. It acts as the ultimate boundary condition for reality itself. You can think of it as the universal dimensionless stability ratio, derived from what's known as transcendental constraint geometry. Basically, it's the tuning dial of the cosmos.
But you might be wondering why this specific number, right? Well, we're going to unpack exactly how this exact value keeps literally everything from your digital security right down to biological life in perfect balance. Because as the source material points out, if a recursive system overcorrects, it just freezes solid. If it undercorrects, it drifts completely into chaotic noise. The universe absolutely requires a middle band of lawful persistence to exist, and amazingly, that band is anchored right here at 0.35.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to cleanly separate systems that just simply count from systems that actively fold and compress under pressure. Think of it like this. On one side, we have enumeration geometry. These are our nouns. They're static, they're linear, and they lack any active state compression. Think of simple counting, like prime gaps. There's zero compression happening and therefore zero energetic cost. But on the flip side, we have fold geometry. These are our verbs. These systems actively execute recursive compression under severe constraint, which generates actual real-world thermodynamic pressure.
And this is exactly why the 0.35 attractor only applies to these dynamic, pressurized fold environments and completely ignores simple enumeration. The universe doesn't just passively list out facts or sit around counting upwards. It is continuously, actively compressing this massive, high-dimensional state of endless possibilities into a much tighter, lower-dimensional physical reality. But simply, it folds. And folding? Well, folding requires pressure.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that for a true fold geometry to actually work, it has to meet a strict tripartite condition. It's like a cosmic checklist. First, you need recursive feedback. The system has to feed its output right back into its input, self-modifying based on its own history. Second, thermodynamic exhaust, because forced compression means some information has to be discarded, which creates a sort of thermodynamic residue or heat. And third, a phase lock. You need a stabilizing equilibrium that slams the brakes and stops the whole thing from just running away into pure chaos. The source material really hits the nail on the head here, explaining that without all three of these elements present concurrently at the exact same time, you don't have the physics of our universe, you just have abstract math on a chalkboard. But when you successfully combine feedback loops, the shedding of energetic exhaust, and that critical phase lock, you create a living, highly stable system that knows exactly when to stop folding. And the math behind this phase lock is genuinely stunning in its elegance. The Mark I attractor, let's just call it H, is derived exactly as pi divided by 9. Now, the numerator pi represents continuous rotational phase space. It's the fluid, continuous nature of thermodynamic energy. But simple linear feedback just isn't strong enough to stabilize that kind of continuous exhaust. You need second-order feedback. So that denominator of 9 provides the absolute minimal second-order recursive depth, which is essentially a base depth of 3 squared that is needed for absolute stability. Pi over 9. That gives us our 0.35 constant.
What this creates is a state of self-organized criticality. It translates perfectly to an exact 35-65 split. The universe actualizes exactly 35% of its capacity into rigid structure, while leaving the remaining 65% as fluid potential. Think of the 35% as those frozen nouns we physically interact with, and the 65% as the uncollapsed verbs buzzing around, providing the potential for future change. It's a highly intentional imbalance designed to maximize the throughput of complexity.
This 35-65 split creates literally the ultimate Goldilocks zone. If a system crosses this threshold and actualizes, say, 80% of its capacity, it becomes entirely too brittle to adapt to any new inputs. It just freezes up into gridlock. Conversely, if it fails to reach that 35% actualization threshold, it can't maintain any structural coherence. It completely dissolves back into underdamped chaotic noise. It shatters.
So you might be wondering, where does this exact 35-65 split actually manifest in our day-to-day world? Well, you might be surprised to learn that this isn't just abstract, high-level physics. This ratio actively governs the most practical systems we rely on literally every day. Because if this is truly a universal constant, a fundamental rule of how systems manage feedback and exhaust, we should be seeing it everywhere, right?
And when we zoom out, we really do see it everywhere. We see a massive grand unification of the Mark I attractor across computer code, biological cells, and the cosmos itself. In cryptography, we see it deep inside the SHA-256 algorithm. In biology, we see it dictating the exact geometric pitch of protein alpha helices. And in cosmology, it's out there balancing the very expansion of the universe. Let's break these down one by one, because it's fascinating.
Let's start with cryptography. Algorithms like SHA-256, which secures trillions of dollars in value, by the way, they survive because they inadvertently tuned their gears identically to the frequency of the universe. When we hash data, it isn't just getting randomly scrambled. The algorithm feeds data back into itself over 64 rounds, aggressively discarding exhaust along the way, until the internal dynamics literally phase lock right around that 0.35 residual entropy mark. The internal constants of SHA-256 actually cluster right around this exact universal attractor to maintain active geometric diffusion without stalling out. So it turns out Satoshi Nakamoto basically built a universe simulator without even knowing it.
Which completely flips our whole understanding of hashing on its head. Reversing a hash doesn't actually require guessing. It requires unwinding a highly specific geometric knot. Cryptography has long assumed that hashing is thermodynamically irreversible. But if SHA-256 is actually governed by the Mark I attractor, then it's not some random oracle. It's a deterministic fold. It's digital origami. The data isn't destroyed. It's just tightly compressed into a lower dimensional topology that, technically speaking, can be unfolded.
Okay, moving over to biology, the math is just as precise. Exactly 5 H radians per residue equals precisely a 100-degree pitch in a protein alpha helix, H, of course, being our 0.35 Mark I attractor. So the intricate biological folding process happening inside you right now perfectly correlates to this exact same universal geometric constraint.
And this elegantly dissolves Levinthal's paradox. If you're not familiar, the paradox basically asks how a protein could possibly find its correct folded state among astronomically vast possibilities in mere milliseconds. It should take longer than the age of the universe. Well, the answer the source provides is brilliant. There is no search at all. The biological cell just executes a geometric linkage that locks right into the Mark I attractor, collapsing the 3D spiral into a stable structure instantly. It doesn't search, it just renders.
Now, let's scale way up, shifting from the microscopic scale of cells to the absolute largest scales of the cosmos. This exact same fold pressure stabilizes the universe, ensuring it doesn't just tear itself apart with underdamped chaotic noise. The 35-65 ratio directly manages the tight balance between actualized propagating states, like physical matter and radiation, and the uncollapsed potential, which we observe as dark energy. This framework even provides a brilliant mechanism to alleviate the Hubble tension, showing exactly how the universe bleeds energy from clustered matter into dark energy to maintain scale invariant stability.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? What does it actually mean for us? Well, human consciousness and observation are just the inevitable results of the universe folding data over vast amounts of time. If the universe is a continuous computational manifold that is always converging on stability, then the observer, that's us, we aren't sitting outside the system. We are what the closure becomes when it finally stabilizes enough to remember the difference. We are literally the recursion loop reflecting back on the very gap that created it. I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought from the source material. Reality isn't looking for a solution. It is simply executing the code of the ultimate universal constant. Whether it's a cryptographic algorithm securing a blockchain, a protein folding inside your cells, or the massive expansion of space-time itself, everything, absolutely everything, is answering to the fold pressure of 0.35. The universe isn't a collection of nouns. It's one magnificent, continuous verb. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the geometry of everything around you.